For the first time, we're now seeing text messages between operatives working with Trump's legal team. In those texts, they're trying to figure out what to do with data from a breached voting machine and if they should or could use that information to try to decertify Georgia's Senate runoff back in 2021.
But we're learning for the first time now that after January 6th, after everything that happened that day, that hunt continued, and they did successfully get access to data from a voting machine in Coffee County. And these texts, 2 weeks after the breach happened, show you for the first time what they were planning to do with it. They were looking, it's very clear here. One text says, here's the plan. Let's keep this close hold for now. We only have until Saturday to decide if we're going to use this report to try to decertify the Senate runoff or if we hold it for a bigger moment later. Now, they're talking about the Senate runoff in Georgia, obviously the one that David Perdue, the Republican, lost, and it was won by Senator John Ossoff. But for the first time, we're getting a window into how people that were working for Trump in the lead up to in the aftermath of the 2020 election kept trying to do the same stuff weeks after.
So they keep going, even after January 6th. This is a conservative county, and this is part of a big, we always talk about the investigation by the DA in Fulton County is about the 2020 presidential race, but it's bigger than that.
It is bigger than that. I think what the DA is looking at there is really election interference, and this is part of it. We know that she has information about not only the attempts to breach these voting machines in Coffee County, but also the attempts to try to use these to undermine or to try to undermine the Senate runoff results as well as the 2020 presidential election results. And it's telling that, even after they saw how horribly it went trying to overturn the 2020 election, even after they saw what happened in January 6th, that there was still this kind of scheming going around in the layers around former President Trump at that time.
It's a very conservative county. So you would think if you're trying to prove fraud, why are you looking there? But is it because that's where they were able to get someone to help them get access? Is that this?
Exactly. They were able to find an election worker in Coffee County, which, as you mentioned, Trump won about 70% of the vote there. They were able to find an election worker who was sympathetic to some of the claims about, voting machine irregularities, that, they were potentially vulnerable to foreign hacking. And so they opened the front door and let this team of operatives in. That data was shared with a select group of Trump allies, and ultimately they were talking about whether or not to use it to try to upend the Senate runoff.
Right, and important to note, data that no member of the public should be able to touch, especially nobody with access to it, no one who's involved in a campaign with a partisan agenda should be able to touch.
Right.
Do we know where we're going here in terms of timetable?
Well, look, frankly, I think this is part of the reason the DA's investigation has taken so long, is that as we peel back the layers in a state like Georgia, we're finding more and more about what happened. We knew Donald Trump called Brad Raffensperger. We knew Rudy Giuliani showed up and said crazy things to state lawmakers. But it was well after that that we learned about this breach in Coffee County, that we learned about sort of the gang of people involved in that. And we know she's looking at these potential racketeering charges. Maybe this spring. We're still waiting.
Right. For this to be happening even after January 6th just speaks volumes.
This is some major news related to the investigation of Trump's interference in the 2020 election in Georgia. CNN is reporting new text messages showing Trump operatives, including someone working for Sidney Powell, who is on Trump's legal team, along with the CEO of the Cyber Ninjas, were working together to decide whether to use breached voting data to decertify John Ossoff's win in the 2021 Georgia Senate runoff. This was voting data from a voting machine that was breached in Coffee County, Georgia, a rural conservative county that voted overwhelmingly for Trump and other Republicans. These texts showing Trump operatives deciding whether to use this to derail the election result were sent on January 19th, well after the January 6th insurrection and just one day before Biden's inauguration. This was Trump's last full day in office, and it shows us that even then, they were continuing to try and steal a free and fair election. Even after a deadly mob stormed the Capitol, still they were denying the results to try and wreak havoc. And let's be clear, if this stunt was successful, it could have illegitimately handed control of the Senate to the Republicans. They were also considering using this data to steal the 2020 presidential election for Trump in Georgia. Now, of course, if CNN is reporting these new texts publicly, we can absolutely be confident that Fulton County DA Fani Willis has them in her possession, and it's almost certain that they are playing a role in her ongoing grand jury investigation. And as I said, this shows that Trump's operatives were still trying to steal the election even on Trump's last full day in office, a fact that is especially damning for Trump's legal defense in the Georgia investigation. And this isn't the only major news that we've received out of Fani Willis's investigation in recent days. I asked former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner about what else we've learned in my legal series, The Legal Breakdown.
DA Willis filed a motion with the court to get a defense attorney basically removed from representing 10 fake electors. And the allegations in this motion are pretty blockbuster, really bad for the lawyer whose name is Kimberly Burroughs Dubrow. So Dubrow represents 10 different clients. All of these clients are allegedly fake electors. They had signed, false election certificates saying Donald Trump won the election. Those crimes are being investigated by District Attorney Fani Willis. And according to the motion that was filed to disqualify this lawyer, there were meetings with two of those fake electors together with their lawyer, Ms. Dubrow. And during that meeting, and there were two meetings, they occurred on April 12th and April 14th. So, this just happened. During the meeting, these two fake electors who were targets of the grand jury investigation told Fani Willis that Ms. Dubrow never told them that Fani Willis extended immunity deals to them back in 2022. So in other words, an attorney chose, for whatever reason, not to communicate to the client that the district attorney, the prosecutor, was offering them an enormous benefit, an immunity agreement, which means they would probably never be prosecuted for the crimes if they just accepted the immunity and came in and testified truthfully. Let me tell you, Brian, that is a big ticket ethical transgression for a lawyer to withhold from their client information about a really beneficial offer that was extended by the prosecutor. That was one of the alleged missteps. Here's the second one. So Ms. Dubrow represents 10 clients, 10 fake electors. And what Fani Willis discovered was that two of these clients, two of these fake electors said, you know what? One of the other fake electors, represented by Ms. Dubrow, committed crimes in violation of Georgia state law, and we had nothing to do with that. Well, now Ms. Dubrow's loyalties are split between and among her several clients, because she might have to represent the interests of one client if that client wants to flip against another client. So these are actually two significant ethical missteps by Ms. Dubrow. And as a result, Fani Willis asked the judge to kick her off of all of those cases.
Okay, a bunch of questions here, but the immediate one is, what are the repercussions for a lawyer who basically does this? Like, what can happen to her?
The allegations in DA Willis's filing with the court are accurate. We have no reason to believe they're not. This will absolutely necessitate a bar counsel referral for Ms. Dubrow. And these are big ticket ethical transgressions. These are not minor missteps. So this could absolutely result in her being sanctioned, being suspended from the practice of law, and perhaps even being disbarred.
And so it stands to reason that with this defense lawyer now removed from the process, it's going to make it much easier for these fake electors to cooperate with Fani Willis. And lo and behold, that is exactly what's happening now. According to the Daily Beast, this past week, quote, some of the electors stated that another elector committed acts that are in violation of Georgia law and that they were not party to these additional acts. And of course, this will undoubtedly help Fani Willis work her way up to the top targets in this investigation, including Donald Trump. But here's the thing. Any development that makes it easier and more likely for those involved in this investigation to cooperate with Fani Willis will always be bad news for Trump, because the facts of this case are against him. And we know the facts of this case are against him because he admitted it on audio.
So, look, all I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state, and flipping the state is a great testament to our country, because, there's just, it's a testament that they can admit to a mistake, or whatever you want to call it, if it was a mistake. I don't know.
Yeah, generally speaking, if you don't want to get caught trying to overturn an election, maybe avoid admitting out loud how you're looking for exactly one more vote than you have. Just, for starters. So while much of the fixation in previous weeks has been on the Manhattan hush money investigation and its resulting indictment, we can also be hopeful that justice is coming for Trump in Georgia, where the charges will likely be far more dire for him. This is why he is posting dangerous threats targeted not just against Alvin Bragg, but also Jack Smith and Fani Willis. Not because he's justified, but precisely because he's scared. The fact is that he knows he's drowning in legal exposure right now, and these new texts from his own operatives secretly plotting to use voting data from a breach machine to derail the election is is bound to hurt him even more. And while I know it's frustrating to have to wait so long for justice, the silver lining is that the more time that passes, the more that we are learning that'll add to Trump's impending avalanche of accountability. Before you go, I need your help. I'm right on the cusp of hitting 2 million subscribers, so please help me grow this channel so the progressive media ecosystem grows by hitting the subscribe button right here on the screen. I also started a Spanish channel so we can finally start regaining some of that lost ground among Spanish speakers, so if you want to help support those efforts, you can hit that subscribe button. And finally, if you listen to podcasts and you want to support mine, you'll find a link to that on the screen as well. Thanks so much for watching.